4, 3, 2, 1.
Studio Classroom is
recording.
Studio Classroom. Studio Classroom.
Please stand by. Studio Classroom is on the air.
Hello and welcome to Studio Classroom on the air. This is the place to come when you want to have some fun and of course learn a little bit of English while you're at it. Well, my name is Gabe and I'm very happy to be one of your teachers here at Studio Classroom. Now here's a question for you. What do you think about tests? Now I ask that because people assume that everyone hates tests, but that's just not true. I don't even hate all tests. In fact, I think that some tests are fun. True, I'm usually nervous when taking a test, but the tests themselves can be quite interesting. The name of today's lesson is Test-Taking Tips. So it's good to have a positive outlook on something like a test, right? Now today we have two very important tips for you to keep in mind while taking a test. The first is pay attention to the time, okay? And try your best. And actually, there are more than just two tips today, but the others are in the details, okay? So pay attention, open up your magazine, and let's begin.
Test-taking tips. Pay attention to the time. When you are handed a test, look over all the questions before you begin. Read them carefully, noticing details. Also pay attention to how many points each question is worth. Divide your time based on the percentage of your grade each question is worth. First, answer questions you know, and then go back to the difficult ones. That way you don't spend too long on one question.
Hi everyone, welcome to Language Flap. 首先我们看的是 detail 这个名词。Detail 是指细节。例如 Nina is very sharp, no detail can escape her eyes. Nina 非常敏锐，任何细节都逃不过她的法眼。Detail 如果是复数型的话，可以指详细资料或详情。例如 complete details of the application can be found on our website. 在我们的网站上可以找到如何申请完整的详细资讯。如果是 in detail 的话，是一个副词片语，意思是详细地。例如 Laura loves to tell her mother about her days at school in detail. Laura 喜欢巨细靡遗地跟妈妈报告每天在学校发生的事情。接下来我们看的是 percentage 这个名词 ，cent 这个字根有100的意思，所以 percentage 是指百分比或比例。例如 What percentage of the workers employed by your company are physically challenged? 你的公司中雇用身障的员工的比例是多少呢？或者是 The percentage of teenagers who only interact on social media is increasing. 指在社交网络上互动的青少年的比例越来越高。如果去到字尾的 age, percent 就是指1%。例如 The unemployment rate dropped by 0.5% last quarter. 上一季失业率下降了0.5个百分比。
Thank you very much, Michelle. All right, friends, we only have a certain amount of time for our lesson today, so we need to pay attention to the time. As our director likes to tell us, we need to budget our time. Well, we'll talk about that phrase later, but right now, pay attention to the time. This is a great tip for when you're taking a test. And there are many things you can pay attention to. If you're paying attention to something, that means you're not just focusing on it, but you're keeping it in mind at all times.
Sure, one thing you should pay attention to is cars when you're crossing the street. You need to make sure you're paying attention when you cross the street.
That's right. So check every now and then to see what is around you, to check your surroundings. Pay attention to what's going on if you want to be safe, especially if you're going to cross the street or if you're driving, right? You need to pay attention. Think of some other things that you need to pay attention to, friends, and talk about that. Use that phrase in English.
Well, we need to pay attention to the time when we are taking a test, and when you are handed a test, look over all the questions before you begin. That's the first piece of advice we get here.
That's a great piece of advice, a great suggestion, a great tip. Let's take a look at this phrase, to look over something. All right, here in our lesson, this means that you're looking at something. You're not taking a really deep look at everything. You don't have time for that. You're just glancing over it. You're trying to get an idea of what is there in the test.
Right, so you're just looking at it quickly. Perhaps you've written an essay and you've already read through it to make sure that there aren't any major errors, but you should probably look over it one more time just to be sure there aren't any big problems.
That's a great example, and you can, if you have time, and if your essay is a homework assignment, then maybe you could have your friend or someone that you trust look over your essay to see if they spot any other errors of some kind. Well, friends, let's move on here. Read them carefully. This means read the questions for the test carefully, noticing details. All right, that's an interesting point. Have you ever done that, Carolyn? Do you ever take this advice or follow this advice?
Sure, I had to take a lot of tests growing up, a lot of multiple choice tests, and I would just look through the questions quickly and see if I noticed anything about the questions where they're asking for a specific detail. Maybe the question is, what color shirt was the man wearing? That means when I go back to read the comprehension section, I'm specifically looking out for what color his shirt is.
Ah, interesting. Okay, so it is very important to notice those details. You know, this reminds me of a story of a professor who gave his students a test, and the instructions said, read through the questions carefully, all of them. And the very last question said, you don't need to do the test. It's not worth anything for your grade. So the students that didn't look through all the questions, they spent all this time, they were really anxious and nervous trying to finish this test, only to realize it wasn't worth anything.
Oh, that is a mean trick.
A tricky professor.
Very tricky. Well, read carefully, notice those details, and also pay attention to how many points each question is worth.
Okay, well, let's take a look at something from this sentence. Okay, how many points each question is worth? Okay, so worth is value. You use this kind of phrase to discuss how much value something has. So for some tests, every question is worth the same amount of points. But for others, maybe one question is worth 10 points and another is only worth 2.
You could also use this to describe other things that have value. For example, if you go to a museum, perhaps each piece in the museum's collection is worth more than $1 million.
Oh man, you know, it was like that when I went to the Chime Museum, Carolyn, down in Tainan.
Oh, sure.
Yes, some of those violins, oh my goodness, they were easily worth over $1 million each, some of them.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, see how many points each question is worth on your test. Perhaps some questions are worth more points than others, and then divide your time based on the percentage of your grade each question is worth.
That's right. So this is a very wise thing to do when you're taking a test, okay? We read on here, first answer questions you know, and then go back to the difficult ones. And this is one of my favorite points, or one of my favorite tips, because I just get so nervous when I think about a question I don't know how to answer. But if I remember, I can just skip it for now and go on to the ones that I do know. Then it does help, at least for the time.
It does, and you won't get stuck like this poor person in our picture where she just doesn't know the answer and she's stuck on one question, not moving on to the ones that she might be able to answer. Now, we read here, that way you don't spend too long on one question. And that's all about watching your time.
Hey, well, you know, our lesson is about test and paying attention to the time. Let's see what it means to stand the test of time in
the Info Cloud.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Info Cloud. Rex, what are you doing? We're on camera.
I'm so sorry. I'm reading this book about the poetry of William Shakespeare. It is so good that I just can't put it down. You know, his poetry has been studied and read by people for hundreds of years. His work has really stood the test of time.
That's a great expression, to stand the test of time. We say that to describe something that has been around for a long time, meaning it hasn't disappeared and is still functioning until now.
This expression is commonly used to describe something that is of good quality, substance, or is so important that it is still around today.
For example, the Bible has been read by people for over 1,000 years. It has stood the test of time.
Another example would be, my grandparents have been married for 50 years. Their marriage has stood the test of time.
You can use the expression to describe almost anything in a positive way that has been around for a long time.
今天要分享的这个用语相当的简单明了，那就是 stand the test of time， 通过时间的考验。Stand 除了站立之外，还有坚持或承担的含义。Test of time 就是时间的考验。你可以用这句话来形容任何事情，通常代表一样东西相当有品质，不会消失在时间的轨道中。The Bible is a book that has stood the test of time. 圣经是一本通过时间考验的书籍。在这里用 stood 过去式，因为已经通过时间考验了。另外一个例子是 My grandparents have been married for 50 years. 我的祖父母结婚50年了。Their marriage has stood the test of time. 他们的婚姻通过了时间的考验。这就是今天的 Info Cloud， 我们下次云端见。
Studio Classroom is on the air.
Friends, welcome back to Studio Classroom. Now, here is a little test for you. It's not that difficult. There's only one question. What was the name of the first section in our lesson today? If you said pay attention to the time, you are correct. You got 100%. Yes, of course, it's important to look over all of the questions when you first get the test and see which questions are worth more points. And if you're not sure what the answer to something is, maybe you could skip over it for now and go on to other questions where you know the answers. All right, we have some other great tips for you for test taking now.
Test taking tips. But try to write an answer for every question on the test, even if you're not sure of the answer. The only exception is if you will lose points for wrong answers. If possible, try to finish early so you have time to review your answers and correct mistakes. If you're not sure whether you should change an answer, it's best not to. More often than not, your first instinct will be correct. Try your best. Above all, study well and try your best. If you do that, you can be proud of whatever score you get.
OK， 继续我们看 review 这个动词 ，re 这个字首是指再一次 ，view 是指看，所以 review 在这里就是指仔细审核或检查。例如 ，Don't forget to review your answers before turning in your test。交考试卷前别忘了再检查一次答案。或者是 After the incident, the airline's safety procedures are being reviewed。这个意外发生后，这家航空公司的安全程序正在被审查。Review 也可以指复习或再看一次。例如 Joseph always reviews after each class and it helps him get good grades. Joseph 每堂课后都会复习着帮助他拿到好成绩。最后我们看 instinct 这个名词 ，S-T-I-N-C-T 这个字根有刺激的意思，所以 instinct 是指直觉。例如 when the detective saw the suspect, his first instinct told him that this guy is guilty. 这位警探看到嫌犯时，他第一个直觉就是这个人有罪。或者是 all my instincts warned me to leave this place at once. 我所有的直觉都在警告我要马上离开这个地方。Instinct 也指本能或天性。例如 once a woman gets pregnant, her maternal instincts will kick in. 女生一怀孕，母性的本能就会发动。And now let's get back to our teachers.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Well, let's continue on here with some test-taking tips. We're learning about paying attention to the time. Okay, so try to write an answer for every question on the test, even if you're not sure of the answer. Now, we read on here, the only exception is if you will lose points for wrong answers. So that's a great point, right? Because some tests, it really doesn't matter, I guess, if you skip over a question or if you fill it in wrong. It's just wrong. But sometimes you'll actually get docked points. That means you'll get those points taken away from you if you fill in the wrong answer.
Yes, I have taken a test before where each question was worth 3 points if you got it correct. But if you got it wrong, you would lose 1 point for every wrong answer. So if you didn't know the answer, maybe it would be better to not answer the question because then it's just 0 instead of -1.
That's right. Now, a lot of tests are multiple choice tests, okay? So maybe like a Scantron test like this. And from my memory, a lot of these tests that I took, it didn't matter. Like if you didn't know the answer, you could just fill in something and you wouldn't get any points taken away from you. But I guess it really depends on the test. It depends on your teacher as well.
Sure, yeah, there are many different test systems, and we see a good phrase here, the only exception.
That's right. We want to talk about this phrase, the only exception, okay? In Chinese, you might say 例外, all right? This is the only case where this rule is not followed. So what's the rule? Try to write an answer for every question on the test. Here we see the only case where this rule is not followed is if you will lose points for the wrong answers.
That's right, and you could have exceptions to many different things. For example, maybe your country requires you to serve in the military, but there is an exception. You could say the only exception for military service is if you have a serious medical condition. Then you don't have to serve. That's the exception.
That's a great example, Carolyn. So this is a good word to know, friends, the exception or the only exception to something. Okay, so let's continue on here. If possible, try to finish early so you have time to review your answers and correct mistakes. Man, this whole lesson is about getting places early and finishing early. These are things that I am not good at, Carolyn.
Oh, Gabe, I think you might need to learn how to budget your time.
That's a great phrase. Well, friends, we mentioned it once before. Let's talk about it now here to budget your time. All right, if you're budgeting your time, think about it like budgeting your money, right? You have a certain amount of money. Are you going to spend all of it or are you going to save some? How much will you spend here? How much will you spend there? It's the same with time, right? If you have 60 minutes, think about how much time you will give to each question or thing. You need to budget your time.
That's right. And if you want to stop being late, you should probably learn how to budget your time.
Yeah, I think you're right, Carolyn. And you know what? As I said before, this is something that our director here at Studio Classroom always reminds us because we have a certain amount of time to teach each of these sections here in our lessons. And so it's important for us to know how to budget our time. Carolyn, we have about a minute left and at least one more important point to teach. So should we move on?
We should move on, and we'll read our next sentence here. If you're not sure whether you should change an answer, it's best not to. More often than not, your first instinct will be correct.
You know, that's a great reminder, but man, I've been in that situation where I'm so nervous. I'm like, oh, did I guess the right answer? And then I change it. Oh, and I got the wrong. It was actually the right answer. My first instinct was correct, often.
So you shouldn't have changed it. But we see here, just try your best.
That's right. Try your best. Friends, you've heard this phrase before, but it's a great reminder. We want to remind you, no matter what you're doing, put your best into it. Try your best.
That's right. Just try your best. And our last sentence here, last two sentences, above all, study well and try your best. If you do that, you can be proud of whatever score you get.
And I like that point. Don't just try your best on the test, but study well. That's part of trying your best. Well, it's nice to finish a lesson about tests with a review skit.
Oh, I need to pass. I need to pass. Pass.
So clearly you really want to do well on this test.
Yes, I need to pass.
Well, did you prepare? Do you know the material?
Of course, but I get nervous before tests.
Well, uh-oh. Those nervous feelings can cause you to forget facts.
I know.
But listen, breathe, try to relax. Move your body slightly, roll your shoulders around.
Okay, I feel a little better.
There you go.
But my stomach still feels queasy.
Oh, that's not a bad thing. Your body is producing adrenaline.
Adrenaline?
Yeah, adrenaline gives you the energy to succeed.
Succeed?
Yeah, just tell yourself you're excited instead of nervous.
Okay, I'm excited. Not nervous. Excited.
Yeah, that's right. Think positive. You'll do better.
Okay, all right. But the tests are going to be handed out soon. Oh my goodness.
You'll do fine. Just look at the questions before you begin, read carefully, and notice the details.
Details such as?
The percentage of points that each question is worth.
Okay, I'll try.
Yeah, then just answer the questions you know. And after that, go back to the difficult ones. Don't spend too long on one question.
Okay. Should I answer every question, even if I'm not sure?
Yes, unless you lose points for wrong answers.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and if you finish early, you can review your answers and correct your mistakes.
Thanks. Okay, I feel better now.
Good. And above all, just try your best and be proud whatever score you get.
Okay, let's do this.
All right, we can do it.
Here
We can
come
do
the
it. We can
tests.
do it.
Well, friends, we learned some great tips today. Remember to budget your time when you're taking a test. Remember just to try your best. Above all, study well and try your best. And maybe you can reward yourself with a treat or go out to a movie with some friends. Hey, speaking of movies, maybe you could go watch the Lego Movie 2. We're going to learn more about that next time right here on Studio Classroom. We'll see you then.
A friend endures at all times. A good friend lasts a lifetime. I am so proud to have you in my life. A good friend lasts a lifetime.